Good evening. Linda, could you please give the invocation?
Let's bow our heads. Dear holy and righteous Father, I thank you for your love, your mercy, and your grace over us. I invite your presence to reside in this place tonight. I ask your blessings on each of those here that labor among us for the good of this city. Your word says in Proverbs 26:12, "Do you see a person wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for them." The wise listen to others. I declare tonight, all will listen to each other. And if any lack wisdom, they will ask of you, Father. You who give to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. For if we seek wisdom like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then we will understand the fear of the Lord and find the true knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. For the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easily to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. So, Father, we just ask for your wisdom to be evident tonight in every decision that is made here. And, Father, we thank you for those that are being honored tonight, and we ask an extra blessing on them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Linda. So now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderperson Borneman is absent. Present in person. Monroe.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Busker.
Here.
Shadle.
Here.
Misick.
Here.
Barr.
Here.
And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Alderman Monroe. Okay, item number 1 is approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Monroe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on January 17th, 2023, and the special meeting on January 30th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Monroe and seconded by Alderman Barr. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Public comments. We have one signed in. Troy Milks, if you'd like to go to the podium, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm here to get a little understanding on the ordinance for grease traps that's going to be required to put in my store, the Papa Murphy's. My wife and I own that store. We've owned it for about 10 years now, and we have not had any grease trap in there at that time. And I believe it's been there 13 years before that, so in 23 years that store's been there, we have not had any issues whatsoever with pipes or sewer or anything blocking up. So now I'm being told that what the requirement is, I need to spend $1,000 to $2,000 to install this grease trap. I don't understand it. We don't cook with anything there. We don't, the meats that we use come in frozen. They're refrigerated the whole time. And so I'm wondering, I just want to understand it. I talked to Rob Boyer, and he said because of utensils that touch this meat or whatever, it could cause a problem. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm looking for an understanding of why I need to do this, spend this money. And I guess I see it's on the agenda. And I don't know if you're going to vote on this ordinance or it's already passed or what it's on the agenda for. But I just don't understand how we could be causing a problem, you know. I understand there is a need for it at certain places, but I'm just trying to figure out why I need to spend this money. It doesn't make sense to me. So I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature and acted as one motion unless there's a member of the council that would like to have something removed for further discussion. Is there anything, council? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of approving and placing on file the boards and commission minutes from the police pension and the firefighters pension fund from October 27th, 2022, the CDBG hearing for the water main replacement on Ridge, Westwood, and Island on January 17th, 2023, the Liquor Commission semi-annual report to the city manager from July to December 2022, the Festival District schedule for 2023, the Greater Freeport Partnerships monthly report dated January 25th, 2023, and the building permit report for January 2023. There's also the resolution for adoption of 2023-17, approving the redevelopment agreement with the Park District for reimbursement of additional police protection services, and the finance bills payable in the total of $878,746.88, and for payroll pay period ending January 14th, 2023, in the total of $576,166.46. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And just to verify, that resolution is for rescinding that resolution. And I misspoke on the one reading there. So was there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Mizek,
Aye.
and Barr.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the recognition of service awards. Chief Summers?
I'll be brief here just for a quick second. I just want to recognize Tom Kemple for 30 years of service to the Freeport Police Department. He started in 1993, and he was full-time when he started, but he has switched to a part-time role. Tom is always there when we need somebody to come in and work. He always fills up the time. Again, I'm going to be a little brief because we might hear a little bit more about Tom in a little bit.
Thank you. Chief Miller?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to invite Denise Scudder up to the podium here. Okay, I'm pleased to introduce Denise Scudder. Her hire date was February 23rd, 1998. She has a husband, Tom, daughters, Heather and Ashton, which Ashton is here today. And Denise has 4 grandkids. Denise is a member of the Illinois Fire Service Administrative Professionals. She's our Freeport Fire Department FOIA officer. She was nominated by her peers in 2020 as the Fire Department Employee of the Year Award and 2020 Honorary Firefighter of the Year. She also wanted me to share this with everyone, that she's proud to have worked with 5 fire chiefs in the past 25 years. Chief Blackburn, Chief Kevin Countryman, Chief Blackburn again, myself, Chief Todd Allen, Chief Brad Liggett, and once again myself. Some other things that she probably doesn't want me to share with everyone is this is one of her least favorite things, public recognition, getting recognized for the hard work and the efforts that she does. She also has been trying to convince me she started working for the city when she was 10 years old. So 25 years later, we're here to recognize all of her hard work, her efforts. She's truly the backbone of the administration of the fire department. Everybody here will agree that we cannot do what we do without Denise and her help. So with that, thank you very much for your service. thing. We've got some downtown dollars for you to spend with your family.
And then next on the agenda is the 2022 Employee of the Year Awards. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tom, if you wouldn't mind coming back up? Sure. Oh, we're going to do, well, I was going to do Tom and I was going to do Nick. Oh, okay. The part of the problem is they've already received their awards at their Christmas parties. So we're just recognizing them today for their work. And so I got a little spiel for both of them. But no awards, no money. Sorry. But as the chief mentioned, Tom's been working for the police department since 1993. We moved over to part-time status back in 2008. And Tom was nominated for quite a few reasons by the people that he works with, because he is such a supportive fellow. He supports his fellow employees, and he's willing to work when needed. And call him at the last minute, he's there. He's very competent and skilled dispatcher, and that's what we need in that department. Because when phone rings, things break out. Tom also assisted the police department not that long ago with a situation that happened back in October of 2022, where he saw a crime being committed. A person was attacking a woman after a car accident with a bar, and he intervened and managed to get the person down and hold him until the police arrived. So not only is he concerned about what's happening in the police department building, but what happens out in the streets as well. And we greatly appreciate that, Tom. And I just want to congratulate you on being the Civilian Employee of the Year in the Police Department.
Thank you.
Nick, on the other hand, he's been around for a while too. When the sergeants and the corporals were looking at who they were going to nominate or let me know who they thought made a big impact in the department this year, the name of Nick Rosenstein kept coming up. And he's a member of our emergency response team. He's also a field training officer, and this past year I think you did have one person that you were trained in that. our recent changes to the fire department's record management system. It's something that we've been upgrading, and he's been our point of contact on that project and trying to get everything going and making it smooth and taking care of all the issues that would come up and make sure that the processes worked and everything else. So we really appreciate that. He's also one of our, also the SCBA, yes, I want to say SCUBA, self-containing breathing apparatus coordinator. So when firemen are out there with the tanks on, he makes sure that there's air in them and that, so he maintains them. So Adam, I have something for you. I'll give it to your daughter in recognition of your work, so thank you very much. I also have a special recognition I'd like to do at this time as well. Because of the work that Scott Stekel's done for us, I'd like to recognize Scott. Where's Scott? Oh, hiding back there. You didn't know about it either, did you? All right, good. You're good at that. Yeah. Scott, after the unexpected passing of Chief Brad Liggett, kind of took over the department and stepped up to the plate and made sure everything was running smoothly. And during this time, with great uncertainty what was going to happen, he made sure the department continued to function. He was a rock that I know I could count on to make sure things were getting done in the fire department. He coordinated a lot of our efforts between here and Beloit with the chief's funeral services and that, and he maintained the department and kept the operations going. And I greatly appreciate that, and so I wanted to give you this special recognition for your work that you did and keeping the department going and moving it forward. Thank you, Scott. Charissa. Oh, right there, right in front. Where I couldn't see. Come on up. Charissa Cady started working for the Freeport Library in December of 2021 as a library clerk 4 and in our circulation department. From day one, she demonstrated her dedication to efficiency and very high work ethic. And in the spring of 2022, she transitioned to our youth services department, where she became our library assistant. And her attention to detail, passion, enthusiasm really works well in a library environment. That's what we need. And your help with the summer reading program was also very instrumental. Because of that, our summer reading program was very, very successful, best we've had in years. But what I like about it is that your willingness to try to transition so that we could be a better provider for the Spanish-speaking community in our community, and the fact that you help patrons that speak Spanish. You're doing your outreach. That's really great. That's part of the community that may have been lacking some of the services that they needed in the past. So greatly appreciate that. Also, as I said, you're an amazing team player. You're really, well liked by all your employees in that, and your hard work in that. I'd like to recognize you as the Library Employee of the Year for 2022. Thank you. All right. Oh, wrong one. Order. Oh, hey, Scott. You didn't leave, did you? I think you got the wrong one. All right, we'll trade. All right. Carl Zire. Oh. Congratulations, Carl. Carl's our water treatment plant lead operator, and he's our utility employee of the year winner. We like to recognize his service to providing safe and reliable and drinking water to the city of Freeport. Carl began his career in Freeport back in May of 1994, and took that position to heart. He went and got his Illinois Environmental Protection Agency Class 1 water license, and from that he got promoted to lead operator, and he's been there ever since. And in 2005, Carl's attention to detail and hard work, we were recognized for having the 5 years of consecutive compliance with the Illinois Fluoridation Act, meaning that we put a little bit of fluoride in our water. We have some high concentration of fluoride now, but not enough to meet the new requirements. So because of that and Carl's work, we've been able to get that 5-year award. Also, Carl maintains our shift schedule for all the water department employees and ensures that all the shifts are filled. He's going to be pretty busy coming up with our new water treatment plant that's going in on Burchard Hill area there, with the new well number 11. And once we get that started, we'll start with well number 12 in that treatment plant. So Carl's going to be really busy keeping things moving in the water department. So Carl, thank you very much. And let me like to give you this plaque in recognition of your service and our appreciation of all the work you've done. Pat. If you ever get stuck in a snowstorm, make sure Pat's around because he'll help push you out. He did me once a couple years ago, and I greatly appreciate that. Pat Ingram's in our forestry department. He's our forestry foreman, and he's the street department employee of the year. Pat was involved in almost every project we had going on in the Public Works Department, whether it be taking down some dangerous trees, helping pave the road, storm sewer inlets, and everything. I mean, even helping with some OSHA requirements and stuff as well. Pat also makes some sound recommendations that help us deploy our equipment right. he took over the supervising the mechanics department, and since then, all our equipment's running a lot better than it ever has. Well, as old as it is, it's running pretty good. But he's, makes recommendations, and he's not afraid to make recommendations, which is good. And he's a strong leader in that department. And his ability recently to foresee a problem that we had with the Birchford Hills repaving project, save us $7,000 and some tree removal expenses in that he was able to do with his crew. And so that's greatly appreciated. And so, Pat, I know I appreciate all the work you've done, and even helping me push my car out of the snow a couple years ago. So, all right, Pat, thank you very much. Rob, coming up. Rob Boyer is our 2002 Department Head of the Year recipient. Rob began his career in Freeport back in June of 2020. He has shown innovation, entrepreneurship, and has great leadership skills. Over the past 2 years, Rob has saved us thousands of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating, by thousands. And one example that came off the top of my head was he found a contractor that will mulch our tree branches and our leaves for free and give us $10,000 worth of services in kind towards tree removal. And that saved us $40,000 plus a year, because we used to haul that stuff, plus the time and energy it took to haul them out of town. So that was something that really was beneficial. He changed his department. He was able to convince me and the city council that we needed a new street paver. And I think you can see the results of that decision that council made, and his leadership in getting us to buy that new piece of equipment. This year alone, we paved about 6.5 miles of road, which we haven't done in quite some time. And with the new water and treatment plant, new water well and treatment plant coming online, that's going to increase our reliability and volume of water. And about 40% or so of the city's water supply will be coming from that one well then. And that's going to be very beneficial to everybody. He was also involved with the Chicago Streetscape project, the 5G project with U.S. Cellular, upgrading our meter readers, devices, and everything else. So he's been a great asset to us. And when he's not working for the city, he's volunteering with Trail Life Youth Group, which is like the Boy Scouts. And he's involved with Rotary, Kiwanis. He's always serving the community of Freeport in one dimension or another. And so, Rob, thank you very much. And congratulations on your award. They think they're leaving. Wayne, you want to come up? I saved the best for last. I saw Ben walk here. Ben, want to come on up? Ben Fritz is our Employee of the Year recipient. I don't like people walking behind me. I learned many years ago when I worked for CETA, which a lot of you probably know what CETA stands for, Comprehensive Employment Training Act. That was an old work program. You never walk behind somebody. Yes. But Ben's a shining example of what professional loyalty really means in an employee. One of the statistics that really impresses me that in 2022, Ben completed 1,958 building inspections. Yeah. And if you look at the average work days, it's about 260 work days in a year. It averages out to about 7.5 inspections a day that he's doing. And out of the 1,900 inspections he did, 959 of them were directly related to building permits, because he also did about a number of nuisance inspections as well that were part of it. Code enforcement, thank you. And now you see the building inspector, but he's also our plan reviewer. So he reviewed 650 permits in 2022 as well. So between doing 7.5 building inspections a day and then doing almost 3 plan reviews a day, and some of these plan reviews weren't small ones. So if you start looking at what's happening at the Meadows shopping area, those take more than just a few minutes of overview. So Ben's really been active and really been dedicated to that service. He's also holds professional designations from the International Code Enforcement or Code Council. He's an accessibility inspector, a plan examiner. He's a certified building inspector. He's a certified building plan examiner. He's a certified electrical inspector, and he's a mechanical inspector. He has his mechanical inspector certificate. Ben is approaching his 5th year. Well, we just celebrated 5 years together, didn't we? Yeah. 5 years working for the city, and he's also very much involved in seeing that things get done. And he also, when we talked about inspections, you worked on 88 chronic nuisance issues and cases, and that's about 61% of the chronic nuisance complaints that we had. So Ben, you've done a great job for the city. You were recognized by your peers and what you're doing here, and I just want to congratulate you. Thank you. And Mayor, if I may, for 30 seconds more, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and supporting this fine group of people that provide service every day to you and to all the citizens of Freeport. Their dedication is what makes the city great and helps us to keep moving forward and making a better community. Thank you.
About 6:15. Oh, it's all right.
That's wait. Where's Tommy's award?
Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please note for the record at 6:17, Alderman Borneman entered. We'll move on to item number 7, which is the second reading of ordinance 2023-05. Could you please read this for the record?
Ordinance to approve Second Amendment to lease agreement for Pretzel City Area Transit at 208 East Main Street.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I stated last week, the city has a lease agreement with Anthony and Robin Peters at their property at 208 East Main Street. They contacted us stating that their insurance premiums were going up due to the city's requirements. I investigated the situation, and in the memo last week I presented, I itemized what their premiums were since 2016. And after reviewing that, and their request to go from their rent agreement was from $500 per month to $550 per month. I reviewed that in light of their raised in premiums and recommend approval of the ordinance.
Discussion, council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2023-05?
Monroe,
Yes.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Mizek,
Aye.
Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 8-0.
Item number 8 is the first reading of ordinance 2023-06. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Part 10, Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, Title 4, Utilities, Chapter 1046, Sewers Generally, Section 1046.12, Pretreatment Generally, Interceptors, and this is all regarding grease traps.
Thank you. Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. In February of 2022, City Council approved changes to Ordinance 1046.12, pretreatment generally interceptors, including language that requires grease separating devices for commercial wastewater contributors. Staff recommends a specification change to the capacity of the required grease trap identified in the ordinance. The current specification calls for a device that's an 80-gallon capacity and 74-gallon per minute flow rate. Staff recommends changing the specification to a permanent flow rate of 20 gallons a minute. This change will provide operational flexibility and reduce compliance costs for commercial users. Staff requests City Council approve the amendment to Ordinance 1046.12, Section C, subsection 3, paragraph B.
Alderman Monroe.
Yes, ma'am. Director Boyer, so 1046.12, under definitions A, what would you consider, so the term is to be used as a subsection does not refer to food stores or establishments that do not prepare food on premises or process food in a manner as to contribute to grease to the sewer system. So what type of business would you consider wouldn't, put any grease into the sewer system?
Off the top of my head, I would say any commercial establishment that, say, retails books or something of that nature. I'd say anything that's not processing food or handling food. So you have certain cleanliness requirements that's going to require washing and preparation when it comes to food. All those are going to contribute in some way to fats, oils, and greases going down the sewer, and this ordinance helps to eliminate that problem, which 90% of our issues out in the distribution system the collection system are fats, oils, and grease related. So it goes into the sewer system, it combines there with other things, and it creates backups.
Follow up. Do we know the amount of grease that's going into the system that's causing a problem? Is it just a small amount? I take into account a Papa Murphy's that doesn't actually cook the food on site, that take home pizzas.
It's just generally assumed that any food preparation business is going to have washing. They're going to be doing things that, even pizzas require oil and whatnot on the crust. So anytime you're dealing with food, you need to have a grease separator. And this approval of this ordinance actually makes it easier and less costly for establishments to be in compliance with the grease separator or portion of the ordinance.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker.
Director Boyer, could you elaborate on that a little bit? How is this going to be more cost effective to the establishments to have this system put in place?
Well, the 80-gallon capacity and a 74-gallon per minute flow rate is too high. It was included in the first round of ordinance based upon other ordinance of similar nature, and it's too much for Freeport. So reducing that to the verbiage related to a permanent flow rate of 20 gallons a minute should be sufficient for most food preparation establishments.
Just so I'm understanding that then, so their rate will be lower if they have these systems installed, correct?
No, the flow rate.
The flow rate,
No, it has. If I'm understanding you correctly, it has nothing to do with the their water rate. However, it basically means they'll have less of a the actual hardware required to comply with this ordinance would be reduced in terms of its capacity. So therefore, it'll be smaller and more affordable.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Borneman?
Thank you. I have two questions. One, why are we requesting the suspension of rules for this? And two, could you explain this in a way that, in very layman terms, so we actually know what you're talking about?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The reason I asked for the suspension of the rules is primarily because we would like to see this change go into effect sooner rather than later. Only because it's a simple change of specification to the grease separation portion of the ordinance. So if I could explain it in a simpler terms, we are reducing the needed capacity for grease and oil separators on commercial food preparation or any kind of commercial business. So it makes it more affordable and also reduces the amount of capacity required by the ordinance. So that will give us flexibility for restaurants such as this pizza establishment, that they will not be required to put in a oversized unit, if you will.
Just to follow up. So is it your understanding that pretty much all establishments that are subject to this ordinance already have the grease trap in place? And
Yeah, well, we are doing inspection. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, and like the standard grease trap would be in compliance with this lower threshold?
Yes, this is going to allow us more flexibility, and it's going to be less cost prohibitive. We have, issues with downtown businesses that don't have any real estate to put a grease trap separator in outside, and this will allow us the flexibility through the ordinance to reduce the requirements on those businesses.
Alderman Ross?
Yes. At the present time, how many business have we looked into besides the one we're speaking of tonight?
I believe we've gone through every food preparation establishment, and they've all been either they've received a letter saying that there will be inspection. We've inspected at least half, if not 3/4. I don't have that off the top of my head, but we've gone through and inspected many of the businesses that are affected by this ordinance, and we're kind of working through the process of making sure that all of them are compliant.
Okay, a follow-up, Mayor. With that being said, though, upon the inspection, has anyone seen how they actually did the preparation of the food and what exactly is going down the drain?
Well, so of the establishments that we've inspected, we are inspecting their grease traps, and we're checking to make sure that they're being serviced regularly, because if the grease traps go, if they're not serviced, it ends up creating backups in the sanitary collection system. So we have reviewed and inspected all the grease traps that we are aware of for all the commercial businesses that are on our list at this time. I think that's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 to 150. I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head. And this is just a modification to the ordinance that recognizes that we don't need an 80-gallon capacity with a 74-gallon per minute flow rate in our ordinance. We simply need something on the order of a 20-gallon per minute flow rate without a specification for total gallon capacity.
Okay.
Alderman Monroe?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to make a statement. There's a few concerns I have about this ordinance after studying it up a little bit more. One is the number, size, and placement of restaurant grease traps is highly dependent on the volume of business that they do, the types of food that they make, and so on and so forth. Also, coffee shops, bakeries, places that sell exclusively food offerings made at a separate premises like a commercial commissary might not require grease traps. These types of things, I think, need to be taken account into the ordinance, because if they're not making and baking and doing those types of things, the amount of grease that's going in is significantly less than a business that's, frying burgers all day, that type of a thing. So, those are concerns that I have looking at this ordinance a little bit further. And I think generally we should want to try and, we do support a grease trap ordinance, but I think we need to be a little more specific and a little bit more understanding of businesses that don't necessarily cook the food on premise. So, my thoughts.
And just to clarify, in the definition of food service establishments, it does say that that term, food service establishment, does not refer to food stores or establishments that do not prepare food on premises or process food in a manner so as to contribute grease to the sewer system. So that's already in the definition, that exception that you were kind of talking about, Alderman Monroe, that if you don't prepare the food on premises, then you don't fall under that definition.
I guess it comes back to our definition of preparation. I think assembling something is a lot different than actually cooking something. And I think that's what needs to be clarified here in this ordinance, so that we don't, let's face it, Subway doesn't make the same amount of grease as McDonald's, those types of things. And I'm just being very general. But I think that's where we need to go.
Alderman Shadle?
In light of that, I think that's exactly what he's proposing, is bringing the size limitation down to 20 gallons per minute so that they don't require the large 80-gallon capacity storage unit that has to be dug into the parking lot. 20 gallon per minute, if I'm not mistaken, is an item that can sit underneath the sink inside the building, and it redirected plumbing within the system underneath the sink. As far as preparation versus cooking, I'm sure this gentleman uses a ladle to put the sauce onto the pizza that he's preparing. That gets washed somewhere. He doesn't, it's not a disposable item, he's throwing it away. He's washing it in a sink. And although the grease that's generated from that particular business isn't something that's going to cause a backup in his store, the culmination of that in our system is what we need to watch out for as it collects down the line. Thank you.
Director Boyer?
I just wanted to mention one last thing is part of getting in this particular case, the grease trap ordinance, properly set up, it also reduces city liability. So if we're out there in the system and if we're not enforcing our ordinances, or we have contributors that are creating problems that result in backups in other businesses or other properties, the city can be liable under certain conditions regarding that. So this is just good housekeeping as far as the ordinances are concerned. We just simply want to go, we need to make sure that it is fair and universal across the board, and that we have the flexibility, in this case, down to 20 gallons per minute flow rate. But what we would remain, we'd have the ability to scale it as appropriate for the business and what they're doing. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Have we ever had an issue in the many years that Papa Murphy's has been opened? Has there been something that would trigger a violation that there was an issue there?
I can't say Papa Murphy's has had any, but it'd be impossible for us to understand precisely where, if there is a backup, what was the main contributing factor and so forth.
Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think whether it was a year ago or maybe a little bit more, we had some major backups because of grease that we found in a sewer line over by the Ford dealership that was coming from some of the restaurants in that area. And we had to do an investigation. I don't remember exactly. I think we found one or two restaurants that did not have any type of grease traps, and that's where all the grease was coming from. And it took us a couple weeks to clean out that sewer line. and it wasn't a cheap fix either.
Alderman Borneman?
So currently under our ordinance, the minimum standard is this 64 gallon per minute flow rate.
It is 80 gallon capacity with 74 gallons per minute, and I want to remove the 80 gallon capacity and reduce the flow rate to 20 gallons per minute.
Okay, a follow-up. So I'm just curious because this ordinance has been in place for a year, and right now the minimum is too high for most or for the average facility. So have we just not been enforcing the ordinance, or
Well,
how?
I'm sorry.
I'm just confused as how come it's been a year and you're bringing it up now and want to suspend the rules now?
Well, I want to suspend the rules just as a simple matter of business. We can move this on forward and get it done right away. Yes, there is an ongoing issue as we've begun to implement the ordinance. We've discovered there's a lot of places that don't have any grease separators, and we need to codify this in the ordinance so that we can then recommend that they put in these other, like below sink style grease traps.
Okay.
Alderman Monroe?
What's the process for disposing of the grease once it's caught in the trap?
Throw it in the garbage.
Okay.
Alderman Busker?
Do you know what the average cost of a 20 a gallon a minute grease separator, including installation, would cost a business to install?
I don't have those figures in front of me tonight. However, I can get those for you afterwards. I will say it's much far reduced from the 80 gallon, 74 gallon per minute capacity grease trap. So these would be the types that you would just screw onto the bottom of a drain under a normal sink.
Manager Beavis?
Just to kind of repeat, we are actually reducing the minimum requirement for these grease traps, and we have inspected those grease traps. I'm pretty sure almost all of them that we're aware of, and now we're finding out that some of these restaurants and some of these other areas that produce grease don't have grease traps, and we want to bring them into compliance. We could keep the ordinance the way it is and have them spend that extra money, or we could reduce it and hopefully they won't spend as much money. But the thing is, it's costing us in our maintenance of our wastewater treatment plant and in our sewer system that we have to get these grease traps, these places that create the grease, get their grease traps installed. And we're trying to make it a little more convenient for them. If it turns out that the grease traps aren't doing their job, they'll have to clean them out more frequently. But some of these restaurants, like you're making a comparison of McDonald's versus Subway, I'm sure McDonald's creates a lot more grease than Subway, and they have to have a bigger capacity than a Subway would. And so that's something that we're trying to do. We're trying to get more flexibility because we don't want to do an overkill on the grease traps, but we want to make sure we're catching the grease, and so it's not getting into our system. And we are doing annual inspections now, and if we see a place that has a problem, we're doing it more often than annually.
Alderman Barr?
So, a lot of examples thrown around here, and there's probably 100 million more you could throw out. I'm just curious, so a pizza place, but maybe not Papa Murphy's. An Italian place might have a pizza station here, but a kitchen on the other side of the building. One side is not getting, the pizza side, for example, is maybe just getting the ladles washed. Is there a requirement that those grease traps are on all these sinks? Or how is that gauged when the inspections are being completed?
So during the inspection, the compliance officer goes in, looks at the system that they have, sees the type of business that they're in, and kind of estimates that what they have is either going to be workable or not. And she can also, in this case, it's Randy Kohlbauer, if they have an existing larger setup, she would inspect that and if it needs to be serviced, she'd require the business to service it. So it really depends upon what goes on in that business. It's going to depend on the inspection of each place. However, we have to have some kind of minimum standards for all food preparation services, and this is the lowest, or is the smallest, I should say, capacity grease trap that we think will be effective, as well as be able to be within the range of everybody's cost, ability to implement. So,
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Borneman?
Well, I'll make a motion to move this forward. I'm not, as you can probably tell from my questions, I'm not the biggest fan of suspending the rules on this. If there were people who were affected by this, business owners, I think they might want an opportunity to contact their alderperson or maybe make a comment. So I'm only going to make the motion to move it forward at this time.
Second.
Okay, then we have a motion made by Alderman Borneman, seconded by Alderman Busker to move ordinance 2023-06 on to the next regular scheduled meeting. I'm guessing the silence means no one wants to move it forward for suspension? All right, then we'll move on to item number 9, which is the adoption of Resolution 2023-08. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving engineering agreement with Fairgram for annual services for landfill 2-3 and landfill 4.
Director Boyer.
thank you, Your Honor. The city owns and is responsible for municipal landfills 2, 3, and 4. Each landfill requires periodic monitoring and inspection to maintain Illinois Environmental Protection Agency regulatory compliance. Because of the administrative and technical nature of the work, professional services are necessary. The proposed agreement submitted by Fairgram renews the present contract for calendar year 2023. The agreement includes the following activities: groundwater monitoring, leachate monitoring, utility division periodic compliance reports, annual industrial waste survey, leachate recovery system operations, maintenance and data reduction, leachate recovery system repairs, annual report of the effectiveness of corrective measures, 2-year monitoring well to the activities above, and Freeport Municipal Landfill number 4 requires gas monitoring, annual monument staking inspection, assessment monitoring report, construction quality assurance, and leachate collection system cleaning bid assistance. The total cost of the agreement is $238,585. Funding for this agreement is budgeted through the landfill closure expense, and staff requests the approval of Fairgram annual services for calendar year 2023 Freeport Landfill 2 and 3 and 4 agreement.
Questions? Alderman Shadle?
Just looking through this seems to be very labor intensive on retrieving samples. 12 on 4 and 2 and 3, there's 31 with testing after samples are taken. And although it sounds like a considerable amount of money, reading through it, there's a substantial amount of work involved also. And I would be in favor of moving this, adopting this. I would make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker. Was there any further discussion, council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Misick, Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 10 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-09. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving engineering agreement with Fairgram for 2023 master services contract.
Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city maintains an annual master services agreement with Fairgram. MSA agreements offer a flexible system for completing projects and establish what terms and conditions will govern all current and future activities and responsibilities. Fairgram has submitted an MSA for 2023 and provides certain civil and environmental engineering services, including design, permitting, bid assistance, construction staking, construction observation, and other related professional services when required. The funding for this agreement in the amount not to exceed $300,000 is budgeted under the professional services in the utility and general fund budget. Staff requests City Council approve Resolution R 2023-09 and renew the master services agreement with Fairgram for year 2023.
Questions for Director Boyer? What's your pleasure?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe to adopt Resolution 2023-09. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Mizek.
Aye.
Barr.
Aye.
And Borneman.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 11 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-10. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving engineering agreement with Fairgram for stormwater drainage designs for downtown, Kiwanis Drive, and Sioux Basin.
Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. During the fiscal year 2021, City Council approved a resolution to develop a citywide stormwater model. The purpose of the model is to identify areas in the city with insufficient flow and retention capacity during heavy rain and flood events. The model was completed and identified 6 areas in need of improvement. Staff has prioritized 3 of the 6 listed below. Downtown stormwater improvements, Sioux Drive storm detention and basin improvements, Kiwanis Drive culvert and drainage improvements. Fairgram has submitted professional services agreement proposal for civil engineering services, stormwater design improvements, City of Freeport. The agreement includes 10 phases, stormwater plan facility, IEPA loan application, downtown storm improvement design, Sioux Drive storm detention and basin improvements, Kiwanis Drive culvert and drainage improvements, easements, geotechnical evaluations, and soil borings, joint land delineation, and stormwater pollution prevention plan. Additionally, 50 to 70% forgivable loan funds are available through the Illinois EPA for these and future projects regarding stormwater. The funding for this agreement in the amount not to exceed $357,000 is budgeted under the stormwater budget. Staff requests City Council approve Resolution R 2023-10 and approve proposal for civil engineering services, stormwater design improvements, City of Freeport with Fairgram.
Questions? Alderman Shadle?
I can think of a couple of other areas that are issues as well, but I'm guessing you're prioritizing and putting forth just the ones that you feel we're going to be able to afford at this time?
That's correct. I think number one, the downtown storm improvements. We've got a large failing box culvert that is located at Benson and Jackson. That is something that's going to need immediate attention. We've also got similar issues behind the old McNess building, and then there's areas within the downtown that need stormwater inlet additions, and we've got other areas that have stormwater infrastructure that is not functional. So that's why downtown is number one. Sioux Drive, there is a large storm basin there that was private property for a number of years. It needs maintenance, and it is a required portion of our stormwater control plan in that area. That needs to be resolved. And then Kiwanis Drive, there's a fairly large box culvert in that area that is contributing to flooding in commercial areas. And also we need to look at how we can move that water into natural spillways. So yes, those are kind of the highlights of each of those priorities.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross?
Okay, I do agree we got standing water within the city of Freeport. But on East Stevenson and Highway 75, there's been standing water there since 2005 due to the work that was performed that never got corrected. It has been brought up. The city crews have been out and they did make some corrections on that. Yes, it is a state highway. They consider it, that's what they tell me. It's a state highway, but it's still within the city of Freeport. I'm wondering, why can't we look into that? Because it's a very usable roadway that's used every day for all traffic, instead of just the areas that we're speaking of. I mean, I think that would be very feasible for a roadway that's been used every day. I would like a little feedback on that.
Well, I want to just take a moment and mention that we have installed and serviced duckbill backflow preventers in the area that you're referring to prevent the river from backing up. And obviously, due to its elevation, it is more prone to flooding than other areas higher up in town. However, I will say we can definitely revisit and look at that particular area that you mentioned, and see if there's something else that can be done there. However, being then in the flood mitigation grant area, you know, we've got a number of things going on there, obviously, and we're going to need the IDOT to be involved in anything we do right off of 75.
All up, Mayor. Really, this has nothing to do with the duckbills or it's the roadway itself. When they did the work on it. There's standing water that's more than 6 feet from the curb that comes out in certain areas. And like I say, it's more than 6 feet. You know, it's basically just standing water. You know, when we get a good heavy rain, like you said, we're coming in from coming in on 75 from the east going west. In the area of Lewis Street, right there, that whole lane is covered with just standing water. You get in between Johanna and Hooker on the south side of the street. Water is out 6 feet or more from what they consider the curb now. You know, it has been mentioned, but still, nothing has been done. But I mean, if we're gonna do the downtown Kiwanis, we should, you know, at least make an attempt to look into it. And I mean, because like I said, though, it can be a traffic hazard. You know, you get too much water there, and everybody's getting splashed. You know. It's something I think that's worthwhile looking into. If we're going to do this, we might, you know, kind of consider adding all into it. I don't think the flood mitigation grant will have anything to do with it. But whatever it takes, I think we should look into it and get her done.
Manager Pincus?
If I may, Mayor, part of the issue with Route 75 is that's a state highway and we don't have control over it. That road actually needs to be raised because it's too low. And as you said, when we get the heavy rains, there is standing water. And just an example, we're looking at redoing the Hancock Bridge. And because of flood elevations, we're going to have to raise the road there 3 to 4 feet. And so that gives you an idea of what kind of, elevation we're looking at. We're probably looking at 2 feet elevation on Stevenson, and that's just not our jurisdiction to do it. We've done as much as we can. We've put the duckbills on. I know there were some cross connections in the storm sewer with the sanitary sewer. We try to correct that, make those corrections. But there's a major problem there, and even though the pre-disaster mitigation grant, it's not part of this issue, it's still going to help because we won't have that many more buildings there obstructing the flow of water. And really, I hate to say this, but you know, we'll work with IDOT, and just down the road from there by the Stucco building, they did put a new culvert in. We had to move one of our water lines because of that this past summer. So they are looking at it, and we've been looking at it as well. But there again, it's the road itself. We really don't have any control over.
Mayor, with that being said, the water, I've been on that street all my life.
I know.
And when I say all my life, I mean all my life. The water used to flow down the street. You know, can't nobody tell me no different on that because I know better. The water flowed. My parents had a grocery store. Wintertime, my job was to go out there and chop the ice so the water flow down the street. And that's what I did. And now there is no flow due to the work that was done back in 2005 by coming out of Calumet City. And, you know, they done took away the flow. And like you said, I've been on that street longer than anybody in here. And so I know which way the water was flowing. You know, it was a regular flow going. But I still think, yeah, it is a, you know, I don't know, it was that grant was like a safe roadway grant, something like that, when they did it back in '05. And I mean, if we could look into something like that to see why, you know, it just don't flow anymore like it used to.
Well, we could talk to IDOT, and I'm sure we have in the past, but we'll generate that discussion again as to what can or can't be done out there to help that water flow. But I know wherever we've been able to do, I mean, wherever we could do, we have done. And I was taking it, the impression I was getting is that you wanted us to do something with the road. And that's what I was saying. It's the state's road, and we really don't have control over it. But we'll look at the flow of water.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's the same roadway, but when the water gets to the curb, which is no longer there, I hate to say it that way, it is. It's no longer there. It just don't flow. And like you said, been there all my life, so I know how the water flows.
Yeah. I've seen the standing water.
Alderman Monroe.
No, I appreciate, you know, the areas that have been kind of highlighted. You know, I think both Sioux Basin and Kiwanis Drive are long overdue for something to be done. I do have very, you know, strong feelings about two other areas in town, and that would be on North Greenfield, right at Business 20, on both sides of the road. We've got significant issues with water flow. One, after they built the storage units up above, has caused a significant problem for a few houses there. And then when we get any heavy rains, Greenfield becomes impassable. The other area that I would be very concerned about, even though it is a state highway, is that area right at the mobile on Highway 26 near the park. I've seen that flooded and cars going down the hill. The water's the same color as the road, and they get stuck. Hydroplane, they're stuck, car stalled. You know, and it doesn't take a foot of rain to do that. We can get that with a very quick 3-inch, 4-inch rainfall. So, you know, I think those are big issues as well. I guess I haven't paid attention to downtown as much because I don't go there as often, but, you know, the areas I do traverse and go, I've seen the flooding, and I've seen when we've had those big storms, Kiwanis impassable, Greenfield impassable, you know, 26 right by the park impassable. And I think that presents a big problem for emergency response. I think it presents, you know, so we've got a very serious public safety issue and a big storm outbreak. So, and we've had that happen. So they've had to go different ways to get there. So I think if this is the right places, you know, that's fine, but I think we need to make sure that those other places are being addressed as well.
Alderman Borneman.
I just want to say that I know a lot of thought and expertise went into this plan, and I don't mean to undermine it because the people who put this together are far more qualified than I am to when it comes to this subject matter. I'm curious if Woodside Court and Woodside Court out on Woodside Drive was an area identified during the 2021 study.
I don't think that it was, no.
Okay, because I think we could all sit here and identify areas in our wards that we're familiar with and have issues with drainage, and that's just been an area that's brought to my attention by many residents out there. But again, I respect your decision in putting this together, because again, there's been some thought and there's been a lot of thought and expertise put into this. I'm not trying to undermine that, but if we're gonna point out areas that we're aware of, I bring that to your attention. There's been many complaints brought to my attention on Woodside Court when it rains, because that's below the grade of the road as it drains down, and the residents there deal with probably the same issues that those in Sioux Drive deal with.
Alderman Monroe?
How much revenue do we generate off of rain precipitation runoff on our water bills every year? Any ideas?
Take $4 times 10,000 water bills times 12 months. You get rough figure. About 480,000.
And how long has that been in place, that fee? Yeah, the reason I ask that is, there are several areas that were allowed to be developed without any water management at all, or very poorly done. And, that's always been one of the things that's been a hot point for myself, is that I pay that every single month and I've got not one ditch on my property, and I watch rivers flow between my house and both of my neighbors. Washes my yard away, causes damage to my property, and I know a lot of people over on the northwest side of the city have the same issue, and I know also down in your ward they have the same problems. I think this is a Band-Aid on some of these things, because if we don't handle the water that's upstream, we're not really truly managing the flow of water, but yet we're being charged and billed for it. And, we're throwing, I could look back through, was it about $2 million? So, and this is the first time I can remember anything like this being done in a while, unless I'm forgetting something. Am I?
I'm not sure what your argument is.
My argument is that, here we're putting Band-Aids on things, and we're not really addressing the larger issues with water flow.
No, that's not correct. The reason we did the study is to identify what areas need to be addressed, and that's what this proposal that's before you tonight is. 3 of those 6 that we identified. You're talking about Sioux Drive, you're talking about water in your neighborhood, you're talking about flooding on North Greenfield by 20. The Sioux Drive detention facility that we're proposing to do, whatever work gets done there, is going to affect Greenfield where it floods. Because right now that property was I don't want to say, it was disturbed. It was built for a detention facility, and a property owner went in there, or somebody went in there and regraded everything and put additional dirt in, and that's all that's going to have to come out and have to be redone. But that is going to be one of the major detention facility that's going to prevent the flooding that you're talking about on North Greenfield. So you look at a street, you just can't say this street's flooding. Well, what's happening? What's causing that flooding? And like I said, it's upstream, and that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at all these. Unfortunately, we're not looking upstream with the downtown area because it's at the base of a large area, that water that comes downtown here comes all the way from Cray Park. And that's part of the area that's flooding that you're talking about on Route 26. But we have a facility here that's deteriorating, that could collapse, that's next to the railroad, that we're going to have to do something with. And we have done some work through that area. We bought property, we put a new storm sewer in, a larger storm sewer in from basically Cray Park to, I can't remember, down America or whatever, but we have done some work out there and try to alleviate those issues, but the work was never finished. And now we're trying to get to the point where we can start working on these projects again. We've got some money in the bank to do it. I can't tell you what they did in the past because I wasn't here, but I can tell you that we're looking forward and we're looking at trying to correct these problems, and not as a Band-Aid, but as an overall solution. And that's why we hired Firm Graham originally to do the stormwater study for us.
Mayor?
Mr. Stiegel, did you want to add something to that comment? And then Alderman Ross when he's finished.
I just wanted to comment that with the stormwater model, there was probably 25 to 30 projects that were identified for Freeport. And so we just picked a group of projects to start with that would be affordable based on the current storm rates. Not to scare anybody, but the number for all the storm projects was well over $100 million worth of work that needs to be done. It's just trying to generate the income to address all these. So I'd like to think this is just a starting point, and with EPA, they have forgivable funds towards stormwater projects right now that nobody's really chasing. And so we decided to start in this venue with 3 projects and a project plan to try to move Freeport forward in some type of fashion. I would agree the downtown ones that are targeted is because the future liability to the city of Freeport with the 2 storm channels that go under the railroad tracks is enormous. And liability-wise, that's the biggest concern we have in town, because if the tracks come down, that will become an emergency situation that we will not be able to control. So that's why those 2 outfalls are probably not the biggest flooding issue, but the biggest liability issue that Freeport has, because we own those. Like I said, we could bring stormwater projects in every quadrant of Freeport based on the 500-year flows that we've been getting, or 500-year rain events that we've been getting 3 times a year. So.
Alderman
Okay.
Ross,
When you mentioned I was basically concerned about the downtown area. What area are we speaking of? I know you said the railroad tracks.
It's the outfall at Benton and Jackson that goes under the tracks and comes out behind Ultrasonic. And then there's another one that's extended, I believe it's off Clark Street behind First McNess, and that runs all the way to the river. Those 2 channels take our primary flow from not just the downtown, but Mr. Bucas is right. That flow comes all the way from Reed Park with about an 80-inch interceptor that runs from Reed Park that obviously we know have issues because it gets backed up from not being able to release out to the river, because as the river starts to back up, it backs up all the way to Reed Park. That was a major project that I don't even believe that the city of Freeport has paid for yet. That was done under, I believe, Mr. Gitz's mayorship. And but we are having issues that have been identified at Benton and Jackson that are serious by nature, and we do need to address those. It's critical path that we get those done.
Mayor, we're speaking of where all that stone work is at.
Correct. So that's basically a garbage retention area. So the debris that goes into the storms is caught into that basin, and then it goes under the tracks there. And the under the tracks piece is the concerning part. As Rob identified, there's a wooden structure that currently exists next to the tracks that is actually degraded to the part that's starting to disintegrate. And if we go back to easements and property nodes, that is Freeport's responsibility, because that is our exit storm channel that we own and we need to maintain and upgrade. As part of that system too, we plan on putting in a manual garbage collection system that will collect all the debris that's going out to the river now, which is quite significant from the amount of storm that contributes to that area.
And if we, I know this is kind of out there, but if we get the garbage collect, who's the city responsible for
Be part of our storm maintenance.
storm maintenance? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we'll put manual collection nets in is what they are, and then every so often they'll have to be
Cleaned out.
cleaned out. Right now, all that basically debris flows out to the river, and it is quite enormous if you've ever been down there and see it. That particular storm takes probably 30-some% of the storm and water in Freeport alone trying to exit to the river. So when it's flowing, it's full. That 84-inch arch, which you can physically get in and walk all the way to Reed Park, is full.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Borneman?
Thank you. Do you know, or City Manager, do you know the last time, if ever, such a study was done in the city of Freeport?
To my knowledge, never modeled as we did it with we have a program called SWIM, and we evaluated all the storm basins, did measurements, drawdowns on the storm, and tried to calculate maps that would show potential backups throughout the city of Freeport when we can model 10-year rain events, 50-year rain events, 100-year rain events, and 500-year rain events. To be honest with you, no one is going to be able to build a system for Freeport that can handle 500-year events. It's just not probable. It's not practical. We try to target 100-year events. That's your average peak flows. Anything above that is honestly not going to be affordable for any community. And the couple of the key points that Rob picked out, I've actually been out to both of those basins, Kiwanis and Sioux, and both of those we have property issues that are going to result in liability as well. Sioux Basin has a rut in the back of there that's at least 10 foot deep behind the property owners and starting to erode their property. And we have business flooding over at the Kiwanis area that is really putting some businesses out with the amount of flow that comes that way. We have to remember every time we let somebody build, like the retirement homes and those types of things, we're contributing more and more stormwater that needs to be affected. And is what's happening in Freeport is the channelways are starting to get filled full of debris, not just garbage or rocks or silt. They're also getting full of trees and roots and things like that need to be cleaned out. And so that's part of this project, is to try to clean those outfalls to get more flow through the system quicker.
And soil erosion.
And soil erosion. That's part of our MS4 program now that we're addressing within the city limits. Rob's environmental compliance officer is really trying to attack soil erosion with all the building projects. I mean, we typically enforce it because the projects we do are large enough that they require Illinois SWIP compliance. The smaller projects in town are something that we have to maintain locally as a unit group, and that's something that we put a lot of effort towards in the last year that really did not have any enforcement. But I'd like you guys all to realize that all of that comes at a cost to the utility, so it all comes back to user rates because we can't bear the compliance people and all that without having additional storm funds. Storm funds are at $480,000 compared to the probably $500,000 worth of storm infrastructure we have in town that's starting to collapse is not near enough to address the issues that we're having.
Alderman Borneman?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think like I said earlier, we could all probably point to areas in town where we feel that they should be addressed, but this is a plan that's put together by a comprehensive study, and it's hopefully just a starting point, but I'm confident to rely on the professionals who have used their best judgment to find these areas, and there's no reason to think that this has to be the last project. Probably next year, hopefully, we'll be looking at 4 new areas, and just like we did with the roads, where we hadn't ever done a comprehensive road study in the history of Freeport, one was done a few years ago, and now you're able to drive from one end to the town almost on new road, which is something I never thought I'd see in the city of Freeport. So it's not going to be a quick fix. We're going to need to have some patience here, but I understand the reasoning behind the request here.
Yeah, and truthfully, the city staff would love to bring a much larger project. We just didn't think, with everything that's going on with the infrastructure, that it was reasonably affordable at this time without rate increases. It's just, we are putting in approximately $1.5 million into Adams Avenue storm within the next year. And then you're going to follow it up with $2 to $3 million worth of storm work on these projects. So we are making a significant investment in the storm within Freeport. But again, you know, it's baby steps towards how much infrastructure we actually have to take care of right now.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
we've been talking for so long. If there's not a motion on the table to adopt this, I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Parker. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Meisigh, Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 12 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-11. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving engineering agreement with Fairgram for Albertus Airport stormwater inspections and report.
Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Albertus Airport maintains a municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, permit from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. Annually, inspections and a report are required to maintain the permit in compliance with the IEPA. Fairgram submitted professional services agreement proposal for engineering inspection services, Albertus Airport stormwater inspection, City of Freeport. The agreement includes Albertus Airport stormwater inspections and annual stormwater report. Funding for this agreement in the amount not to exceed $4,600 is budgeted under the stormwater budget. Staff requests council approve resolution 2023-11, proposal for engineering inspection services, Albertus Airport stormwater inspection, City of Freeport, with Fairgram.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Parker. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Meisigh, Barr,
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 13 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-12. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving MFT Section 23-00000-01-GM street maintenance for pavement removals, base shaping, and aggregate repairs.
Do we want to go in the right order? You
What'd
missed
I do?
13.
My memos are out of order. I'm sorry. Resolution number what?
12.
My apologies. My notes are on number 12 for Albertus Airport. Which one? So 11 was Busker and Parker. Is that correct, Mayor?
Actually, 11 and 12 are both Busker and Parker.
So 13.
12 is Busker and Parker.
Thirteen.
13 is Adams Avenue. That's where my mistake is. I've got that switched. Okay, and you want number 13 read?
12. No, 12. 2023-12.
Resolution approving engineering agreement with Fairgram for Adams Avenue CE inspections.
Correct. Thank you. Director Boyer.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Adams Avenue corridor from Arcade Avenue to Float Street is scheduled for reconstruction in 2023. The project includes new water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities and new driving surface. Topographic and design work was complete between 2019 and 2021, and the project is ready to move forward to bidding and construction. Fairgram has submitted a professional services agreement proposal for construction engineering services Adams Avenue improvements, City of Freeport. The agreement includes construction observation, construction management, IEPA loan management, and construction layout. The total cost of this agreement is $583,000. The funding for this agreement is in the amount not to exceed $583,000 is available through a combination of IEPA funds and local funds. Staff requests City Council approve Resolution 2023-12, proposal for construction engineering services Adams Avenue improvements, City of Freeport, with Fairgram.
Alderman Busker.
Yes. I'm happy to see this actually come into fruition this year. It's been long overdue. With that, I'd like to make a motion to move this forward, or adopt it.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Is there any further discussion, Council? Alderman Warneman?
What consists of construction observation in the proposal? That's a huge lump sum, and I don't see much really explanation of that.
Okay, answer that. So with that, little over a mile of Adams Avenue, there's going to be a lot of historical legacy infrastructure buried there. The construction inspection is basically making sure that when it's taken out, it's put back in correctly, that we're maintaining current standards with all of the distribution and collection system and stormwater infrastructure that's replaced. And it will also serve as to make sure that everything is done to current code.
Alderman Shadle?
If I could elaborate on that a little bit, I got firsthand view of the construction observance in the project in front of my property this summer. And there was a representative from Fairgram there every day, all day, watching the pipes go into the ground, watching Fisher, not that they needed to be babysat, but this is in our interest, watching them set up their elevations with their laser sighting to make sure that the flow was right on the pipes, to make sure the pipes were bedded correctly, to make sure that they were inserted into the manholes correctly, that the manholes were set right, that the backfill was put in and compacted in lifts. It's a substantial amount of money, but they're watching out for our interest in the long term, that the road is going to stay in good condition, the sewer is going to be in good condition, and the water and everything's going to function properly.
Director Boyer?
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing to that and say it is a very inexpensive insurance policy to ensure that the work is done properly, and at the end of the day, we've got infrastructure that's going to last 20 or more years.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross, Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Meissick,
Aye.
Barr,
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 14 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-13. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving MFT Section 23-00000-01-GM street maintenance, which is pavement removals, base shaping, and aggregate repairs.
Director Boyer?
Thank you again, Your Honor. I'm going to handle all 14, 15, and 16 with one memo. The Public Works Department is assembling the road maintenance program for 2023. The following projects are scheduled for next year's construction season, and that would be 23-50-01 GM. That one pertains directly to pavement removal and shaping. 23-50-02 GM, that is materials delivered, so hot mix asphalt. Among those streets that will be part of both of those will be what we're looking at right now preliminarily, our primary candidates are Monterey Street, Barberry Court, Marvin Lane, West Greenfield, Cheyenne Drive, and Longhorn Court, Ridge Drive, Westwood Avenue, Town Drive, and Bradmar Drive, with alternates Center Street and Center Drive. 23-00168-00-RS contracted resurfacing. These particular projects are Pearl City Road from the roundabout to Park Boulevard, Sullivan Drive, Greenfield Drive, and Harrison Street and Navajo Drive, one block there. 2023-00000-01-GM will cover the cost of pavement removal and shaping for all applicable projects. 23-000-00-02 GM will cover the materials for all street department projects, and 23-001-68-00-RS will cover the cost of contractor resurfacing projects. Funding for this request is through the MFT fund, and staff requests City Council approve resolutions 2023-13, 2023-14, and 2023-15, authorizing the use of MFT funds for the aforementioned projects.
Alderman Borneman.
Sorry, I know I'm taking up a lot of time this meeting. The Violet Street road that was redone this year, the finished product has like gravel, almost pits where people used to park. Is that going to be something the city comes back to pave over next year?
You know, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that situation. I haven't had a chance to fully evaluate it, but I plan to have a look at it.
Thank you.
It's very possible, yes.
I just to follow. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that in the city pass as a finished product. And I mean, I think the residents could arguably say they're worse off, some of them, with having to park on gravel that will. So my point is, I hope that since we have the ability to do roads ourselves, that we come back and finish that area up, because it's just tiny, not tiny, but parking size spots along the side of the road that probably could be done with ease by the city's crew.
Preference, Alderman Monroe.
I do have a question, and it kind of comes back to this water issue. We're redoing West Greenfield, Cheyenne, and Longhorn Court. That's where we've got a significant amount of water. My concern is the water what's washing the road out, or is the road just aged? And the area that we're looking at is right there, just, I would say, I guess it's northeast of the storage facility coming down the hill, right onto the road. And I've gotten a lot of complaints about that one. That's the reason I keep bringing it up. But it looks like we're redoing the road. Are we going to put a bigger pipe in? Are we going to do anything to help out there that could be done as part of this construction?
Yeah, we'll definitely have a look at that. The reason West Greenfield is on this is because it's essentially puzzle pieced. It's falling completely apart, and it's one of the candidates within the portfolio of potential projects that has decent water and wastewater infrastructure there. So that's why it's on the list. But yes, stormwater is something we can definitely look at resolving or improving in that area. I know precisely what you're talking about, and I agree that needs to be reviewed before we move forward with any long-term project, or before we finish up during preparation for the road project.
Seems pretty cheap to fix if we've already torn the road up, so.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt this resolution.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Parker for 2023-13. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Meiser, Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
And then if you could read for the record the adoption of Resolution 2023-14.
Resolution approving MFT Section 23-00000-02-GM Hot Mix Asphalt Materials Delivered.
Any further discussion there? Alderman
Move to
Busker.
adopt.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross, Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Meiser, Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted 8-0.
And item number 16 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-15. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving MFT Section 23-00168-00-RS, Pearl City Road, South Greenfield, Sullivan, Navajo, West Harrison, roadway reconstruction.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Mizek,
Aye.
Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
That resolution is adopted, 8-0.
Item number 17 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-18. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving Ring Central phone system.
Thank you. Director Setman.
Hello, Council. About a year ago this time, you may recall I stood here and we talked about the city's phone systems, and we went with an agreement with Mitel. Unknown to us at the time, negotiations were underway, and Mitel was bought out by a company called Ring Central. So the Mitel system we have now will be sunsetting later in the year. So they've offered a new agreement to migrate to Ring Central. That's kind of the gist of it. Any questions?
Alderman Shadle.
Is anything going to change other than the name on this?
A few features here and there, but the basics of it being a phone and the features we wanted are still there, and then there's added some. And we should see a reduction in cost, but it's tough to say with fees that'll be added later.
Thank you. Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Mizek,
Aye.
Barr,
Aye.
and Borneman.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted, 8-0.
Item number 18 is approval of bid. Could you please read this?
Bid opening on January 17th, 2023 for 3 SUV squads.
Chief Summers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Each year, the Freeport Police Department budgets to replace older vehicles in the fleet. This year, the police department budgeted to replace 3 squad cars. On 1/17 of 2023, the police department held a squad bid opening for new police squad cars. Prior to the opening, the police department hand-delivered packets to local car dealerships. At this time, only one local department or local dealer submitted a bid. Barco Automotive quoted the price for a Dodge SUV at $40,348 each, and a pickup truck quoted at $37,398. Barco also gave a trade for $7,000 for the 2 older squads that are to be traded in. The department also received a state bid vendor response sheet from Morrow Brothers Ford. Morrow Brothers Ford has quoted the SUVs, the Ford SUV at $39,590 each. The quote for the pickup was $45,890. Morrow Brothers Ford is allowing $5,600 for the 2 older vehicles that are to be traded in. Traditionally, the shift commander's vehicle has been a truck. However, this year the shift commanders voted that they would rather have their vehicle be an SUV instead of the pickup truck. Morrow Brothers quoted at $39,590 for a 2023 Ford Interceptor. 3 of those would be $118,770 for the 3 SUVs. The trade value $5,600. The total price is $113,170. Barco gave the quote for $40,326 for 2023 Dodge Durangos, $121,044 for the 3 SUVs, $7,000 trade allowance for $114,044. The police department recommends the acceptance of the Morrow Brothers Ford bid for the 2023 Ford Interceptor. The total price of $39,590. The overall price plus the trades is $113,170. This is budgeted, and the funds will be taken out of line 331-302-7005.
Alderman Parker?
Question, where's the state bid out? Where are they located?
Morrow Brothers Ford is down around Springfield. Yes, Greenfield, Illinois.
Thank you.
Alderman Shadle?
Just for clarification, some may not be aware of what the state bid cars involve, what the extra that you get with that.
Well, the state bid cars are designed specific for the law enforcement. That's what those bidded out for. So they come pre-prepped. Some of the Dodges will also, if they're ordered in that fashion. The state bid has these vehicles sitting on their lot and are ready to go.
Thank you. Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Busker. There's no further.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the cargo van is out? Is that?
At this time, we have to do a little more research on the cargo van. We're looking at the pricing of upfitting the inside of the cargo van to see if that fits within the budget on the things that we have to do to make that applicable to the application that we want to use that van for. So that's going to be coming a little down the road.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
There's no further discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Misick.
Aye.
Barr.
Aye.
And Borneman.
Aye.
The bids are approved 8-0.
Thank you. Could you read number 19, next approval?
Approval of proposal for auditing services, which was due January 27th, 2023.
Director Richter?
Thank you. This little bit of background, the City of Freeport passed a resolution in November of 2020 for auditing services with Whipfly, LLC, for the fiscal years of 2020 through 2022. On November 15th of just last year, the Finance Director was notified by Whipfly that they would not be conducting our 2022 audit. The reasons cited by Whipfly were that our audit did not fit into Whipfly's schedule and the fee charged was too low. Past practice has been that the City of Freeport has obtained multi-year bids during the RFP process, but only one-year contracts or engagement letters are signed with our auditors. Requests for proposals for auditing services were emailed to 6 firms. 2 emails were received declining to participate. Only 1 proposal was received by the due date. The proposal was received from Lauterbach and Amen. The city has previously worked with Lauterbach and Amen during fiscal year 2014 through 2017 for audit services. And also currently, LNA provide actuary services for the police pension, the fire pension, and also for our other post-employment benefit liabilities for the audit. Due to the short notice we were given by Whipfly, receiving only 1 proposal is not unusual. Accounting firms plan their year in advance, fitting audits in where capacity permits. A late notice such as ours may have difficulty fitting into schedules that have already been created for 2023. 3 references, including Rockford, Illinois, Rock Island, and East Moline, have been checked regarding LNA, and all of these municipalities indicated positive responses in working with LNA. They also met all the requirements of the RFP. Laid out there on my memo is the cost for the next 5 years. 2021, our audit cost $38,000 by Whipfly, and LNA proposed a cost of $41,450 for 2022, and then gave us costs all the way up for 5 years. With that would be an initial 9% increase, and then 3% increases over the next 4 years. Staff request approval to contract with Lauterbach and Amen for audit services for these fiscal years, and we'll be signing 1-year agreements with them. And if you have any questions.
Alderman Monroe?
I'd normally direct this to you, but I'm going to direct it to Manager Bucas. When we use them during that time frame, I believe you were here toward the end of it. Were their services pretty good, or?
Well, actually, Finance Director was here during the entire
Oh.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. So what were your personal thoughts?
I think they're very on the ball. LNA is, I think they would be a good fit. I think they would do a professional job. I think they'll be on time. towards the end of our working with Whitfley last year, they kind of were slower on getting reports done and things like that. I don't think that would happen with LNA, as provided by the references as well.
One additional question. Any concern with the overall audit being done as well as the fire and police pensions with the same group? Is that typically pretty common?
No, it's not common. Usually, you do have separate agencies do both those things. And that was a question I did pose to LNA about that. So they have a process in place where they actually subcontract to another actuary. They do the bulk of the work, but also get it kind of double-checked by this other actuary, and the actuary numbers are actually issued by the other firm.
Awesome, thank you.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Meissick? Barr?
Aye.
And Borneman.
Aye.
The motion is approved, 8-0.
Item number 20 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-16. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving one-year engagement letter with Lauterbach and Amen for auditing services.
Do
Motion
you
to
have something
adopt.
more you wanted to add to that? No.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Madam Clerk,
Do we need to, never mind, I answered my own question.
sorry. Could you please take the roll?
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Meissick?
Aye.
Barr?
Aye.
And Borneman.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted, 8-0.
And could you please read item number 21's motion?
We're looking for a motion to consent to Gills Freeport Disposal performing all garbage hauling services under the City of Freeport contract for residential garbage, recyclable materials, and landscape waste collection and disposal with Mooring/Gills Environmental Services, LLC.
Thank you. Manager Bekus.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you recall, seemed like about a month ago, we discussed a similar issue with this. Morning Disposal recently agreed to sell certain assets that they had that involved the City of Freeport waste hauling contract to Allied Waste Transportation, also known as Republic. There's a provision in the current Morning Gills Environmental Services, LLC, that allows Gills to match the price on that buyout, and Gills is exercising that option. So technically, the transfer already took place, so Gills is actually going to be paying Republic for Morning's portion of the City of Freeport's contract. And what's interesting about this too is that Gills is already a subcontractor as part of the agreement we have with Gills Morning Environmental. So they will now be 100%, they'll own 100% of that contract. And so they'll be the only hauler we'll have in the city of Freeport for residential waste pickup.
Alderman Shadle.
Have you had a chance to speak with anybody from Gills? Do they have any, are there going to be any concerns about having enough manpower and trucks to handle this uptick?
I did meet with them. They're proposing to try to entice Morning's employees to come along with them. They have the equipment already, and so they don't really see a problem with the transition.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
So, what part is Republican going to take in this?
Absolutely none.
No. So Gills will be the waste disposal for the entire city of Freeport.
That's correct. When it comes to residential pickup, yes.
When it comes to residential, what about commercial?
That's open to whoever wants to use it.
Will Republicans still be here or not?
I don't know.
Only reason I say that, at the corner of West and West, that little store there, on the right-hand side has a Republican blue dumpster sitting out front. And I was wondering, I was like, dang, so if they're not gonna be here, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna get interesting, I'll put it that way.
The contract, it's my understanding from talking to Mooring, is that they sold all their assets, all their contracts to Republic. And because of the way that our contract was written, in order to do so, they had to get our permission to subcontract it out. I'm questioning whether whether Gills needs our permission to subcontract buy out the contract from Gills, because they're already part of the contract. But I think just for formality, they're asking for consent that they could do it. And I don't see any financial issues with that.
Okay. Thank you, Manager.
I was just going to clarify, my understanding is that this contract that's being taken over 100% by Gills is only residential, so commercial is up to each commercial property to decide who they want to be their waste hauler. So I think that would continue, because that's what happens now anyways.
Alderman Barr?
So do you have any concerns, and maybe this is a ridiculous question, with one company doing all residential? I mean, with regards to fees or any issues? I mean, there's no other options if something should there be a glitch, I guess?
The current contract has another 5 years to go, so there's can't be an increase in fees. If they want to, they can come back and lower them, you know, so but that's, you know, up to them. It's my understanding years ago that the city fathers had a concern whether one contractor could do the whole city. Technology's changed. You don't need as many people to pick up trash as you did back then. So I think they've got the equipment. They're part of a larger corporation as well that they could draw on for equipment. And like everybody today, we're all looking for employees. Whether they could convince the morning employees to come over and work for them, I don't know. But I don't see an operational problem on our side.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Monroe?
I'll add that I've had both of their services in the past, and Gills has been spot on every single time. So I've had them over living on the west side of town now for the last 7.5, almost 8 years. And they're there. And when we had that snowstorm just a few weeks ago, when trash was not picked up on the east side, it was on the west side. And so, you know, I think that tells me a lot about the quality of their services. And I think from being locked in for 5 years at cost, I think there's very low risk.
So this is probably a question we might not have an answer to right now, but what remedies do we have if Gills is unable to have a sufficient staff to perform the services as contracted to provide the city after this buyout?
Attorney Zito has a comment.
So we would have all the remedies that are under our contract. So with Gills taking over the whole contract, they still have to abide by that existing contract that still has 5 years on it. So if they're unable to perform under that, that would be a breach, and we would have all the typical default and breach remedies that are currently stated in that contract. So I believe off the top of my head, it includes the ability for us to go hire someone else to do the work and then bill that cost back, I believe.
Okay.
We also have I believe a $100,000 bond that they post.
Sure. Alderman Parker?
You need a motion from us to approve. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Monroe to approve as stated. There's no further discussion. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Misick?
Aye.
Barr?
Aye.
And Borneman?
Aye.
The motion passes 8-0.
Item number 22 is reports from department heads. Finance?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Community Development?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make an announcement that we have an RFP out for the demolition of 8 properties. This will be the demolition of the first PDM acquisitions we've done so far. And the, excuse me, the bid opening is scheduled for February 17th at 9 a.m. and we anticipate bringing that to the council meeting on the 20th for approval.
Thank you. Public Works?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to highlight the effort of the street department in the latest snow. They cleared between 6 to 7 inches in a very rapid period of time, had everything curbed back, snow removed from cul-de-sacs and the downtown hauled away in pretty rapid order. So just want to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you. Fire Department?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick update on the ladder truck. Last week, myself and 3 other members traveled up to Appleton Pierce Manufacturing for the final inspection of the ladder truck. We did come up with a small punch list of items to be taken care of on their end prior to delivery. So we're comfortable that that will take place, and we're still anticipating delivery the week of the 13th. So we're looking at next week.
Thank you. Police Department?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are going to launch the TIP 411 later this week. We have everything in place to do that. We just have a little in-house things that we need to do, and we're going to work on that this week and have it launched by the end of the week. I also notified the city manager this morning of my intention to retire from the police department on April 21st. It's 28 years of service will be completed by then. It's time for some new adventures.
Thank you. Library?
Thank you, Mayor Miller. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., we will be hosting an exhibit called A Journey Through Freeport's Black History, Past, Present, and Future. So you can come down to experience pieces of local Black history featuring photographers, authors, artists, military personnel, sports, education, journalism, entertainment, law enforcement, community service, local businesses, and more. And this is the exhibit that has been curated by Georgina Haynes. Thank you.
Thank you. Communications? IT? All right, then we'll move on to City Manager's report.
I have nothing for tonight, Your Honor.
And I just wanted to say one thing this evening. It was the end of January when Manager Buecher announced his retirement, effective June 30th. And Randy has 46 years of local government services, and 5 of those were spent here in Freeport. Obviously, when it gets closer to his retirement date, we'll have a celebration. And in the meantime, we are engaging in a nationwide search for his replacement. So we will move on to Alderman Monroe.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you know, I know it's a few months away, but we'll miss you. Same with the city manager, Mr. Bucas. You know, it's been great working with both of you, you know, for the last few years. And I look forward to Tommy throwing the going away parties for both of you. That's all I have.
Alderman Ross?
Yeah, I kind of ditto what Alderman Monroe said it. I remember when Matt was a patrolman.
So do I.
Yeah. We had a couple talks that made me think twice. And he know what I'm talking about. And he kind of made me think twice on doing the right thing. And then Randy came in, and Randy, I'll just say you've done a great job. And no ifs, ands, buts about it. Your shoe's gonna be hard to fill. So let's see what happens.
I wear a size 14.
14? Oh, wow. Well,
there you go.
Yeah.
I'm applying then.
The next time the flood, I'll come see you.
Alderman Parker?
Dave, similar. Tells you how damn old I am. I can remember the day Matt started, and plus with Tom Kemple. I think it was a chief when we hired Tom, so some great memories there, and you've done a great job. Thank you, and good luck in your future. And Randy, I think you've done a great job for us. Thank you.
Alderman Busker?
Not really much more than that's already been said. Thank you for your service to the city of Freeport. We'll see you for the next couple months, and then enjoy your freedom.
I'll still be around.
Alderman Shadle?
Thank you to Manager Bucus, thank you to Chief Summers, and also like to mention all the award recipients tonight. Thank you to each and every one of them.
And Alderman Misick?
I just want to say thank you to those two as well.
And Alderman Barr?
Yeah, as well, congratulations. I haven't been on the council very long and not worked with you each very long, but I've been in Freeport my whole life, and I know you came on with some of my friends, and so I feel very old. And very, very happy for you. I wish I was in your shoes, so congratulations. And Randy, we'll miss you. You know, again, I've been here my whole life, and you've done a great job, so thank you.
And Alderman Borneman?
Nothing to add to what's already been said. Thank you.
All right. We will move on to public comment. Tommy?
We're gonna miss you. You do a good job of that, police chief. The police station, you make sure people, only want to miss you because you're doing good, and then.
Thank you, Tom.
And now I'm gonna miss you very much.
I'll stay.
And I'm gonna miss Randy too.
Are there any other public comments this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 27, which is executive session. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Moved. Second.
A motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Monroe.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Misick.
Aye.
Barr.
Aye.
And Borneman.
No.
The motion passes 7-1.